So we know that this season, the Frost sisters are going to be involved with the Hellfire Club's inner circle.
Yes.
So what can you tell me about their position within this organization?
So in season 1, when we meet the sisters, it sort of feels like they're in charge of their mission as far as recruiting Polaris and Andy, but I think they're a bit mysterious. I think we don't really know where they come from or what their deal is or what exactly it is that they're after. And in season 2, we open up here in the Grand Hall of the Inner Circle, and we meet Reva Page, who's played by the lovely Grace Byers, and we realize that Reva is sort of the boss at the top of the Inner Circle pyramid. And so the Frost sisters report to her. And so we realized that all of the sort of weird agenda-driven stuff from season 1 was really under the thumb of Reva Page. And it's interesting because they've got such a tight ideology at the Inner Circle. They're all about mutants only, no humans allowed. And Andy and Polaris are warming up to that idea, but they're still sort of on the fence about it. And so it's really left to the Frost sisters to keep them convinced and happy as they sort of forge the fight for mutant freedom.
Now, we know that, I mean, like you said, they are working underneath Reva Page, but what is their relationship like with her?
It's interesting. You know, the Frosts, obviously, we never talk about, you know, Emma Frost like in the movies and in the comics, but obviously the overlap is there. And what's really cool in season 2 is we actually do get an episode where we go back and we meet the Frosts when they're little. I can't say how many of us there are, but you get to see sort of where we came from and sort of why we ended up being a bit deranged, because we had a really hard childhood and upbringing. And, you know, I think not having a mother figure in our life, Reva is both maternal and sort of a boss. Like, she's a mom, she's a boss, she's sort of a bossy mom. She's sort of both in our life. And it's interesting because Reva is not somebody that you want to cross, and the Frost sisters are definitely afraid of her wrath, but they're also the best people to go up against her and challenge her if she's not making the right decision or if she's unsure about something. And we sort of see this really cool female empowerment dynamic between the 4 girls, and that they're really the ones running this place and making the decisions. And I think it's really nice to see 4 badass women be in charge of such a cool establishment.
Where does that put them in regards to Polaris and Andy, who seem to be part of this, like, this small group of mutants who are in charge here?
Well, it feels like, you know, there's a small group of mutants who are in charge, but really there's a bigger group of mutants who are being recruited and brought in. And throughout season 2, we get to meet a lot of new mutants who come in and who you start to see us almost acquiring mutants. And at first it's not quite clear, but we, you know, towards the end of the season, we make it known that we have a big, big plan, and we are really making an army. And so I think at first, Andy and Polaris are sort of left in the dark about what exactly is going on. Reva has a very strict need-to-know basis in the Inner Circle. But Polaris starts to ask questions. She starts to press on about the ethics of what we're doing and if it's the right thing. And Esme then starts to ask questions. But, you know, Phoebe and Sophie are dead set with Reva. There's no breaking their allegiance. So as Polaris starts to question what's happening in the Inner Circle, and as does Esme. Esme actually sort of defects from her sisters a bit, and we start to see a faction between the girls, which is really interesting.
Now, like you just said, and you did mention it at Comic-Con as well, they're going to start to, like, kind of exhibit their own personalities a little bit.
Totally.
Can you talk about what it was like to portray that? Like, how did you approach each different sister?
So in season 1, when we met the girls, we knew that they would have more of a chance to sort of show their personality. Season 2, the way that they were sort of designed and described to me is like the id, the ego, and the superego. Like, if we think of the hive mind as one mind, though they're 3 people, Esme is our ego. She is ethical. She sort of our straight shooter. Then we have Sophie, who's sweet with her sort of softer voice, much more rational, much more thoughtful. She's our superego, just looking out for what's best, what's good. And then there's our id, which is Phoebe, who's got her raspy voice, and she's just like full of piss and vinegar and feist and is like ready to throw down at any second. And it's sort of fun because in season 2, we get to see the girls' personalities be much more distinct, their voices are distinct, their opinions are distinct, and they don't always agree. And so it's sort of fun that we get to go behind the curtain and see them argue with each other. There's a really fun scene in episode 6, 206, where we're getting dressed. in our fabulous walk-in closet, probably my favorite set of the season. And we're arguing. Like, you see us arguing like sisters about how we get dressed in the morning and about our day. And I think it's nice that they feel like real sisters, which is they love each other, but they do not always get along.
No, I kind of want to bring this back to Polaris because we saw in the trailer that they released at Comic-Con that the Frost sisters are going to be at Polaris's birth, like
Yes.
at the birth of her child. Can you talk a little bit about filming that scene and what that scene was like for you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. When Polaris gives birth at the end of the first episode of the season, it's really powerful. Emma crushed it. She screamed like she was actually giving birth. It made me a little weary to ever be in the room in a real birth. It gave me chills. But it's exciting. You know, when we welcome the baby into the storyline, I think it really sheds new light on the meaning of family. Like, I think that's been a very strong theme throughout the show. But, you know, I think like in real life and on this show, when there's new life, it makes you sort of rethink your role, your position, the choices that you make both for yourself and for this little person. And Esme and Polaris actually, they get close and then they fight and then they get close again and then they fight again and then they get close again, all over the baby. Esme gets very attached to the baby, and her relationship with Polaris really develops around this little person, because there's nothing like a baby to make you sort of double check what you're doing and the ambitious choices you're making, especially in a place like the Inner Circle.
Now, is there a moment or a scene that you are particularly excited for fans to see in season 2?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Well, there's a fun one. I will say this. The opening of the first episode coming back is calm until it's not. The Frost sisters, you know, we have a little brutality at the top of the show. You know, we don't like people crossing us and not listening to us, and we're pretty ruthless. We will stop at nothing. But I think it's fun. We definitely get to see the Frost sisters kick butt, and there's a really fun sequence in episode 202 where we go to an airport and we run a guy over with a bus, and it's pretty epic. We're like walking down a tarmac and planes are taking off when we run this guy over with a bus who didn't listen to us. And you know what they say, don't mess with the Frost sisters.
And now I'd like to close on, what is your favorite part of playing the Frost sisters?
My favorite part of playing the Frost sisters is that I'm constantly challenged. It's definitely the most fun role I've ever gotten to play, or roles, I should say. It's always changing, and it's a really different like creative process when you're thinking about being 3 people. It's really fun, like when I get the new scripts, to think about how the girls are going to interact with each other in that scene or in that moment, and it's never a dull moment. I laugh a lot. It's a little scattered, but it's so fun to see it all come together. It's the most fun job I've got to have.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your time. I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. I hope you